Before we jump in, let me give y'all a little disclaimer. I do not work for the government. I'm not being paid by any sort of political program, and I am not affiliated with any campaign. I'm just a regular, average Coloradan who cares about the livelihood of my state. I want to set an example for all the regular people out there who feel like their voices are never heard. We spend so much time listening to media conglomerates and celebrities, and I don't feel like they necessarily correspond to our sentiments regarding a lot of the policy I'm going to discuss today. So I wanted to make this video as a representation for all the regular Coloradans whose lives have been affected by Cory Gardner's bad legislation. For the undecideds out there who aren't sure what to make of the Colorado Senate race, and all the people who have been really fatigued by the presidential election, who maybe need some guidance as to why the Senate race is so important, because as we know, a president is only as good as its Congress. And I get it, guys. Like, I'm super exhausted too. But now is not the time to be silent about these issues. The whole, I don't care about politics, I'm tired of hearing about it, my vote doesn't matter, that's not gonna fly anymore, so stop it. Because this dude right here, he has and currently is changing your life in ways you cannot even fathom. And that attitude is precisely why he got elected in the first place. Look, if this awful year has proven anything, it's shown us that this is our time to speak up and fight for what can most improve our lives. We have the power. We elect them. They work for us, not the other way around. And I, for one, am not going to let this election go by without doing everything in my power to make sure my voice is heard. And even if you don't finish this video or I don't change your mind, at least I will know that I made an effort and I did my part. And I truly do hope that you will be inspired to do the same this November. With that said, I asked y'all on social media to tell me what issues are most important to you. I got an overwhelming response. I really appreciate that. I'm really grateful for all of the participation in that. I'll be discussing a few of your issues and some broader ones. Obviously, for the sake of time, I will not be going over Cory Gardner's entire record the past 6 years, and nobody has time for that. But we are going to talk about the glaring issues here. So let's do it.
So I want to bring up a man who's going to win the election with us. And really, he's been so rock solid. You know, there were stories, will he? Because we're doing great in the state. We're doing great. And you know, your Second Amendment, you like the Second Amendment. It's under siege. But with Cory and with me, they're not going to play with your Second Amendment. Not going to happen. But it is under siege. You see what's happening. But somebody, we fight together, and he's been so great. Cory Gardner, please come on up, please.
Cory Gardner. Cory Gardner was elected as one of Colorado's senators in 2014, and he has famously ran under the guise that he would be a new kind of Republican. Not the boring, stuffy, old white conservative, but a fresh-faced, charismatic guy who just happens to want less government interference and stricter fiscal responsibility. He promised us he would have absolutely no problem reaching over party lines to get things done and would be as bipartisan as possible. And he told us we could count on him to represent all of his constituents. But did that happen in the past 6 years? Spoiler alert, no. Absolutely not. Now, I already know what you're gonna say. Layton, what about renewable energy? Okay, environmental issues are some of the most important to Coloradans. We live in a beautiful state. We're outdoorsy people through and through. So we're gonna start off easy on him. I'm gonna give him this as a partial win. Hear me out. He unexpectedly ran on a strong platform that included environmental issues that average Republicans never seem to care about. Fair. The biggest being renewable energy. He was the main Senate sponsor of the Great American Outdoors Act that just became a law this summer to give the National Park Service approximately $2 billion per year for the next 5 years. This was a bipartisan bill, and in a summer where we have now had our biggest wildfire in state history, it's a huge win. He also has fought to increase funding for renewable energy here in Colorado. Cool. But while he does seem to support the protection of public lands, he's virtually nowhere to be found in regards to climate change. He openly opposed President Obama's Clean Power Plan. He has adamantly opposed regulations on CO2 and methane. He does say that he believes in climate change, which is great, although little consolation at this point. Honestly, the majority of his legislation simply doesn't reflect that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that he confirmed President Trump's EPA cabinet pick, Scott Pruitt, a known fossil fuel lobbyist and climate change denier. He also confirmed Rick Perry as the head of Department of Energy, also a climate change denier. So yeah, he can make all of the bipartisan environmental bills that he wants, but at the end of the day, he co-signed people in the highest positions of power over our environment who actually don't believe climate change exists and have made efforts to hurt it. And these decisions have directly led to massive environmental protection cuts. So yeah, a partial win here is generous. And at this point, I know what you're thinking. Well, he's just appeasing his conservative constituents. Yeah, sure. But one of the mistakes we continue to make is believing that a candidate's constituents are exclusively people within their own party. That's completely false. He was elected to work for all of us, and he has an obligation to uphold that integrity. And speaking of cabinet seats, he was not appeasing his constituents when he voted to confirm Betsy DeVos as a Secretary of Education. A grossly unqualified billionaire who has never worked for a school in her life and loves vouchers. He didn't care about his constituents when he voted to confirm every other lackluster, unqualified cabinet hopeful. Except for one. The only cabinet seat that Cory Gardner didn't vote for is Robert Lighthizer, our trade representative. Mr. I Love Tariffs himself. A man that is so truly boring. The only interesting fact about him is that China hates him. But I digress. Cory Gardner confirming 99% of President Trump's cabinet picks is unfortunately only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to appeasing his constituents. If you think I've been hard on him so far, it's about to get real spicy. I don't even know how to transition into this, so I'm just going to tell you. He voted in support of the wall. Yes, that wall. He did vote against blocking Trump's emergency declaration to build the border wall. This was, of course, the president's veto last year to steer $3.6 billion more to border barriers than lawmakers originally approved with military funds. I don't even need to explain to you guys why this was a horrible decision, and his bad track record on immigration doesn't really end there. In 2018, he voted for the Stop Dangerous Sanctuary Cities Act, which was a motion that would have moved to prohibit sanctuary cities from receiving economic and community development grants. As you know, Denver is a sanctuary city. Denver. So this guy voted to take grant money away from his state's capital city. These grants accumulate approximately $250 million a year to help reduce gang violence in prisons, improve 911 call systems, amongst other things. And this is a story for another video, but the fight to defund sanctuary cities is unfortunately an ongoing issue that's directly affecting our state right now. So I would encourage you to look into that. But Cory Gardner has also voted for a plethora of other bills / motions that sole purpose for existing is to hurt immigrants under the guise of national security. His continued support for the wall is pretty damn vile on its own. Not just his support for it, but the amount of money he's voted to allow the government to spend on it is egregious and hypocritical, especially considering the fact that he supposedly supports the idea of smaller government. And guys, this brings us to the issue I got the most feedback about. He definitely doesn't care about his constituents when it comes to healthcare. His whole re-election campaign has been chock full of healthcare promises. I'm sure by now you've all seen his commercial where he sat down with his mom, who did courageously beat cancer, and lied to our face.
Cory wrote the bill to guarantee coverage to people with pre-existing conditions forever.
No matter what happens to Obamacare.
As much as he tried to pull on our heartstrings, guys, the unfortunate reality is he has voted not once, not twice, not 3 times, not even 10 times, but 13 times to either eliminate or defund the Affordable Care Act. And I'm sure you're wondering what this legislation is that he's referring to. Well, it's a 117-word bill that he introduced haphazardly 2 months ago. It currently has 0 co-sponsors, and it merely states insurance companies have to cover your pre-existing conditions. Okay, cool. Like, sounds good on the surface, right? But here's the thing. The Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, already guarantees that by law. And it also has what's called a guaranteed availability of coverages. This is super important, guys. It's a provision which explicitly states that every insurance company has to accept all individuals or employers who apply for coverage. That is a guarantee that Cory Gardner's 8-line bill does not have. Meaning, if they succeed in replacing the Affordable Care Act, which he has tried to do 13 times, that guarantee would go away, which would be, frankly, catastrophic without a competent replacement. And his bill is not a competent replacement. It's a last-ditch effort to garner some votes in the 11th hour, nothing more. And to add insult to injury, no pun intended, he has a truly terrifying track record when it comes to women's health and reproduction rights. You guys talked about this ad nauseum. He has voted in favor of partial abortion bans. He has voted for numerous anti-choice bills. He sponsored a bill called the Life at Conception Act, which would have made a lot of common contraception illegal. And shocker, he's voted countless times to defund Planned Parenthood. So guys, by now it's become clear. He doesn't care about his constituents. But if that's the case, who does he care about? I mean, you've noticed by now, Cory Gardner's favorite constituent of all is President Trump. I mean, we've already gone over the disaster that was his cabinet votes, his awful immigration takes, and his abysmal stance on healthcare. It's important to note that he has voted with Trump 99.9% of the time. There's nobody that he wants to appease more than Trump. You don't believe me? Consider this. Remember in 2016 when the election was 10 months away and Cory Gardner voted to block Merrick Garland, President Obama's Supreme Court pick, because it said it would be wrong to confirm a Supreme Court pick during an election year? He said that the next president should be able to make that determination on who the next Supreme Court pick would be. Let me jog your memory real quick.
This nominee should be chosen by the American people. The will of the American people should be heard. The next president should make that determination of who our next justice of the Supreme Court should be.
Okay, so we all remember that happened, right? So that was his stance in 2016. Fast forward to last month, after we lost our beloved RBG. Only 2 months before the election, Cory Gardner upheld that same position and had the integrity to know. No, he didn't. he actually had the audacity to say that he would vote to confirm whoever Trump nominates as his replacement. Because apparently, the same rules that he and his cronies made up in 2016 don't actually apply to President Trump.
Hell no, to the no, 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 yeah, to the no.
He tried it. Oh, don't even get me started on his impeachment vote. Lord, Cory Gardner acknowledged that the president's actions were unjustifiable, yet he proceeded to vote against impeachment. And his reasonings for this was a convoluted diatribe about semantics that boiled down to he just didn't like that the Democrats were trying to impeach Trump. But we're smarter than that, guys. Coloradans are smarter than that. Based on everything you've heard at this point, you understand, as do I, that this vote had nothing to do with the issue at hand and had everything to do with his re-election. As everything else we've heard today, he saw people like Jeff Sessions and Mitt Romney, and he got scared. He knew that if he voted to impeach, he would not have the president's endorsement in November, and that was a risk he was not willing to take. He showed us that he would sooner allow the president to jeopardize our national security than face not getting reelected. And that's far beyond cowardice. And here's the skinny, guys. I don't want a senator who votes solely to further his political career or votes because he's afraid of not getting reelected. No. Oh. Listen, to take you back to the beginning and wrap this up, he told us in 2014 that he was a different kind of Republican. Unfortunately, since he's shown us his true colors. Somebody who values the R next to his name more than the very people he's supposed to lead. He claims that he is bipartisan, but when he's had the chance to put his money where his mouth is and stand up to the president, he hesitates to follow through every time. And in case you've already forgotten, this dude used his own mother as a political pawn in a campaign ad that is chock full of lies. Man, I know it's been a long journey, guys, but at the end of the day, it's a senator's job to work for the people. Cory Gardner does not work for you. He does not work for me. He works for himself. Everything he has done in the past 6 years has been indicative of this. And that is why he doesn't deserve our vote. I really want you guys to do everything in your power to vote against him next month. We live in the easiest state to vote. It takes 2 seconds to fill out that ballot from the comfort of your couch. Guys, if you know me, I talk about this all the time. Please vote. We need to get him out of office. We simply cannot afford another 6 years of this. Dude, I barely scratched the surface here. There are plenty of other horrible policies to go around. Trust me. If you are still on the fence, I really encourage you to look him up. Take a peek at his voting record and decide for yourself. I guarantee you will not be pleased. If you're thinking like, hey, I'm going to give his office a call and get some answers to some of my apprehensions, yeah, he is notorious for not answering questions, dodging town halls when they don't go his way, and overall just being shifty as hell. He's actually not done a town hall in over a year, if you can believe it. It's such a huge problem that the Invisible team actually took a cardboard cutout of Cory Gardner and made their own town halls so that people could ask them questions. They made a really entertaining documentary about this called Cardboard Cory. I urge you to look that up on YouTube and just see for yourself. It's hilarious. I know it's been a long journey with me, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me if you're still here. And I really think it's your turn to do your part in 3 weeks. This is a monumental election that we are never going to forget. And again, I really, really want to encourage you to vote against Cory Gardner. Man, like, when I started this whole thing, just a bottle of wine ago, I'm just kidding. But seriously, when I started this whole thing, I knew Cory Gardner was bad. But just going down the rabbit hole on his policies have just been really disheartening. Like, it's a holy shit bad. It's so disgusting. I don't even have words for it. And like, when I started this, I never anticipated it to be what it became. Like, just, man.